Hi there, I am Evan W. Gertis, and I'm doing the director's commentary for Never Call Paul, Season 1, Episode 2, Duello. And I titled this one Duello because in just about every spaghetti western ever, there is a track called Duello whenever the showdown occurs. So it just seemed appropriate. It was originally called Big Iron because as soon as we get through the opening logos here, yep, here we go. To the town of Aquafria. I just love this song so much. You know, if you pick the right music and cast the right people, your work is done, you know? There's no such thing as an auteur director. A director is somebody who knows how to assemble other people's art, other people's talent. That's all it is, really. Look at them go. This is probably the shortest cooking sequence in the whole show. Because, you know, we never filmed anything, like, really. I can't remember hardly any script outside of the season finales for 2, 4, and 5. Really, those were the only episodes in the whole show that we knew beat for beat what was going to happen. Everything else, we were going with our guts. We would do an outline, and then the day of shooting, we would make stuff up. Here I come. This is my character's introduction. I was not in the pilot, as I'm sure you all know. I just come walking in from the desert. I read people's things online sometimes. Most directors I know don't do that, but I like to see people's reactions. If I know that they're going to be positive, I obviously don't like reading negative reviews or anything, but like I follow the subreddit, I follow some people on Tumblr, the hashtag, and somebody said, where the hell is Carter coming from? Did he park his car just be on that mountain or something and then decide to walk in here dramatically? And the answer, I think, is kind of yes. I think the answer is he probably rode here on horseback, according to the flashbacks that we see later on in the show, and he probably parked that horse out there somewhere and decided to come into town as coolly as possible. This hotel was not an entire building. It was the lobby and everything was one building, and then we shot anytime there's a sequence in the actual hotel room that Carter stays in, or any of the other characters stay in, that was a different set. My hat. I guess I'll talk about that. I don't fucking know what I'm going to talk about. My hat took forever to choose. I really wanted something that looked sort of like Jack Nicholson's hat in The Shooting from 1966, but Jack Nicholson's character in that movie is also kind of flashy, and I don't really feel that Carter is a flashy character. I don't think he wears like jingle jangle type of cowboy stuff, and Jack Nicholson's outfit was sort of borderline that. So ultimately it just came down to finding, is there any hat that I look good in? I hate how I look in a cowboy hat. That's actually why Carter loses his hat so often in the show. Every action sequence, I just get rid of the damn thing for a while. I think I look okay in this hat, though. Here's Paul with some coffee. We did film as often as possible. We would film in sequence every episode. Sometimes it wasn't possible due to people's schedules, but for us, in the early seasons, especially back in the day, it was really easy to film in sequence because we didn't really have a lot of guest stars and we weren't really accommodating many people's schedules. But of course, as show went on and our cast got bigger, then sometimes we had to film out of sequence. I love that. This is everything you need to know about Carter's character is when he audibly reacts to that click of the gun hammer, which you can barely hear, and this is on purpose. You can barely hear the gun click over the just natural cantina ambiance. And the fact that he picks that out and is immediately ready for anything. That's Carter's entire character, really. So we will be doing the commentary for a few episodes in the series, but this is actually the first one being recorded. I want to see if I can get Archer or somebody to come on for the pilot episode, and then we'll do a few other ones. We didn't want to do every episode in the series, but just kind of the big ones. But anyway, I'll go ahead and mention, we'll probably mention it again, but I'll go ahead and mention that, of course, the series is filmed in the style of many 1960s, 1970s spaghetti westerns. And we did not have microphones on set at all. We spoke our lines out loud, but all of our sound was placed onto the picture after the fact in post-production. And for action sequences like what you're about to see here, that was so beneficial because we basically could do everything in a couple of takes. The only really reason we would ever do more than 2 or 3 takes for a scene is if somebody actually fucked up, like tripped when they weren't supposed to or something. But because we are homaging cheaply made movies, we get to make our show very cheaply. That's what was happening. And so it was really far easier than people probably understand for us to shoot sequences like this. It's really about, it really allows you to just focus on staging and blocking. As long as you understand where all the characters are, and I took great care, obviously, as you can see in this sequence, to literally show Carter eyeballing every one of the people he's shooting right now before the shooting starts. He tells us with his eyes, and the camera follows him looking around. He tells us where everybody is, and we know where everybody is. We know where to look. And so even though there's a lot of cuts in the action sequences, there's never any confusion about where you are or where everybody else is. Now I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, I kept count. That's the kind of line we could never do in seasons 4 and 5. I don't regret that the show obviously got darker and more dramatic and more serious. But it's, I think those later seasons are better, but it's just worth pointing out that we would probably never have made the show if the early seasons weren't about doing stupid shit like homaging Dirty Harry with our dialogue, because it was fun. And I needed a atmosphere of fun on the set because I was working with people who, for the most part, had done no acting before, had done nothing, really, in relation to television or film. And I wanted it to seem like we were just kind of screwing around. And as long as everybody was able to buckle down and get it done, we could simultaneously at the same time have some fun. I originally was thinking about Dabney Coleman to play Sheriff Lund, but he was just kind of too old already by 2016, 2017 when we were filming. And Alan does such a good job playing somebody who's not good at his job, ironically. This little bit of dialogue is homage to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think I probably homaged Once Upon a Time in Hollywood more than any other movie in this series because it was so influential. Not so much in the sense of like it influenced my creative voice. I think my creative voice was already developed. It was more of just like, it was, I don't know, it was influential in like a more personal sense. Everybody in my life kind of reacted so positively and viscerally to that movie. And so I think it just kind of stuck in my waking conscience in a way that most other movies haven't. There's movies I like more than that one, but there's not like experiences that I shared with other people in the way that I shared that movie. That was we missed him, but that was Greg playing the doctor, who of course you all know from our last show and the one before that I created. I love that. I purposely did a little bit of a Johnny Depp reaction, a little Jack Sparrow, when that gun comes up to my forehead. So there's obviously been so much conjecture about who is Scratch, who is this character. And now that the show is over, like, for the longest time I was like, am I going to be the director slash writer who just kind of lets people interpret his work however they wish, and I always kind of just be mysterious about it? No, I'm not. Who am I kidding? It's not who I am. Yes, Scratch is the devil, or at least the mouth of the devil, or the devil's representative. And yes, Carter's reference to Devil Went Down to Georgia right here when he says, Johnny, fiddle. That's literal. I mean, he's telling Scratch, who he knows is the devil, and kind of from their dialogue, I think we assume he was trying to make a deal with the devil to get Charles Davidson, the first, back. He was trying to make a deal to save his grandfather's soul in some way, if not resurrect him entirely. And we don't know exactly what happened, but obviously that didn't work out, and now Scratch is hunting him. And he's telling Scratch, when he says, Johnny, fiddle, he's saying, this gun is my fiddle, and I'm Johnny, and I can beat you in a quick draw. It's such an interesting... I find it so compelling, this entire episode. Obviously, I find it compelling. I mean, I'm playing the character. I wrote this character for myself because I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing Jungian shadow work. You know, I was basically confronting the dark half of myself, and for whatever reason, the dark half of myself took the form of this gunslinger character, and it was just the right filter for me to understand my shadow. I'm not going to go in, I guess, to actual Jungian philosophy and all that it means, what you're supposed to understand, but if you do your own research into it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I've talked about this stuff before in interviews and stuff. I mean, you guys probably... I assume anybody listening to the Blu-ray DVD commentary of this show already knows a good bit about Carter Davidson and what he means for me personally. So, this was... I don't know that this works too well, but it was also the second episode of the first season of the whole series. I feel like the tension is kind of brought down, and then when we pick it back up later, it doesn't hit as hard as it could. But, I mean, maybe it does. I don't know. The thing is that I can go back and watch this show, and I do occasionally go back and watch an episode here or a scene there. And I can pick out moments that I am aware might have been better if done differently, And yet I don't know how I would have done them differently. I did them the way that I did them because we were filming this thing, like I said, kind of on instinct. We would outline our episodes and then we'd just go for it. And the reason I wanted to do that is because, well, I wanted to make something that was less manufactured, I guess. I wanted to make something that was avant-garde, for lack of a better word, for lack of a less pretentious word. I just wanted to make some kind of show that, I mean, it would take a lot of work to actually appreciate. There's so many sequences in this show that go on for minutes and minutes where nothing happens, and it basically amounts to a bunch of dudes staring daggers at each other while dad rock plays. But I like it, you know? I like it. And people ask, why didn't you just make music videos? Well, because I didn't want to make a music video. I wanted to make a series that happened to have a lot of sequences that were basically music videos. And then just every once in a while, every 10 minutes or so, some plot happens out of nowhere, and then you go right back to the usual. I miss this town sometimes, man. Just look at Main Street, the tumbleweed going by, the clock chiming noon. Of course, the town wasn't real. It was a bunch of storefronts and whatnot built from the ground up for this show, and there's not much left of it standing anymore, to my knowledge. I think there is still some of it standing, though. I think that the studio films other things there nowadays. All right, so here we are about to see the climactic quick draw sequence. So, 4 guys here that I'm facing off against. And I did 4 because I basically wanted to top Kevin Costner's quick draw in the movie Silverado, where he comes out of the door and there's one guy on his left and one guy on his right, and neither one of them see him, and so he kind of positions himself just right and then draws both his left gun and his right gun at the same time and shoots them both simultaneously. And I was like, well, we can't do that exact scene, so I guess we gotta have 4 guys instead of just 2. I don't know if Scratch's men are just stupid or why they position themselves the way they do, but everybody is lined up exactly, so that it's real easy for me to kill them. People have asked me, Carter's about to look up at the sun here in a second. People have asked me, does that mean something? Because Carter does that in almost every quick draw sequence. He actually takes his eyes off his enemies, which you're not supposed to do, long enough to look at the sun and kind of grin as if there's some inside joke between him and the literal sun. And people have asked if that means something, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Okay, so the quick draw sequence that you just saw, well, it's still playing out. Trick photography was used in all of these early quick draw scenes. Now, I'm not bragging, but I am kind of bragging a little bit. By the time we were filming 2023, I was more or less fast enough that we didn't need trick photography. Now, I'm not saying I was the fastest draw in the West, but I was faster than all the people who hadn't had 5 seasons of practice that we were filming with, you know what I mean? But back then, in season 1, what we did was basically I would pull my guns as if I was drawing super fast, and everybody else would just have to draw theirs a little slower. And then we would actually remove a couple of frames from the shot, which is a trick that old Westerns used to do. Like, you can see it in like the beginning of Rio Bravo, for example. And so if you blink at just the right time, you won't even know that that happened. And it will look as though I have drawn super quickly. Now, if you don't blink at the right time, you'll see how janky the image looks because frames have been cut out. But again, the beauty of homaging old movies with your show is that you can use the old movies techniques, and people won't like say, "Oh man, this thing is made so poorly." It's not that it's made poorly. It's just that we're making it the way that they used to. Briefly, I considered actually in one of the 2023 episodes finding a way to show that Carter had drawn against three guys and a girl once, the way he tells Donnie there. But I decided that's probably a fib. Donnie is obviously this young kid that Carter wants to impress, and so he just says that clever little line because he comes up with it. There are so many scenes now that I don't know why this just occurred to me. There are so many scenes in this series where I'm shirtless. I guess there's not really, in 2023 is really more what I'm talking about. I have my shirt off a lot in that. But I really had to start getting fit when we filmed this show. I was already kind of fit from the last one, but in a different way. I was kind of more deliberately trying to beef up a bit for this show. And also because my brother was my stunt double a lot, so he was beefier. I had to get to be about the same size as him. God knows he wasn't going to shrink down. This is another scene where I'm like, I don't know, does it make sense that Carter chooses to stay? I don't know. The show's so surreal. And I know that people just kind of accept stuff like that. They accept that the narrative just has to happen. If they didn't accept it, the show wouldn't have gotten popular. So I know people are okay with it. But I think that sometimes when you go back and study your own work too closely, you can start to second guess whether things like that matter. The thing is it doesn't matter. I mean, the world of Never Call Paul is some kind of purgatory, I think. And I think that these characters are like souls that are trying to go through some kind of cleansing before they can move on to another better life. And I don't imagine that if there is such a thing as purgatory or hell, any of it makes much logical sense. So, why do Paul and Luca decide to hire Carter as the host? Why does Carter decide to stay? Well, kind of just because. But even if they couldn't tell you why, when you look at the show overall, I mean, I think it's somehow clear that they feel very strongly about their decision, even if they couldn't tell you why, which must mean that their souls, to me, it must mean that their souls are here for a reason, and they subconsciously understand that, and that's why they sort of occasionally allow fate to make decisions for them. Well, this guy literally walked out of the desert. I guess that means he belongs here for the time being. I mean, he's going to be useful to us. What didn't I do with it? Paul's so fucking funny. He's half the reason we made the show is because I think the camera just loves Paul. And I think something about Paul is so casual and effortless. And he's just so naturally funny in his offbeat, sometimes intimidating way. And I guess that's really what initially got me writing the show. And then that's it for Duello. Slow fade to black, close credits. And we know now in the next episode when it begins that Carter will be getting hired. And he's going to stick around. Well, our episodes are famously quite short. I always was fighting to keep them short and sweet. So, I don't know. Did you learn anything that you didn't already know? Fans of the program? Well, if you didn't, then I don't know what to tell you. This was the commentary. This was the first commentary that I ever did for the show. Speaking in the past tense. I'm just watching the credits roll by now. I like to watch credits roll by. I don't know what that is. I have always loved that. Does anybody else have that? Guys, call in. By the time you're hearing this, the Blu-ray package is already done. But guys, if you want to potentially be a part of the Blu-ray package, call in and tell me, do you also like watching the names on the credits go by? I want to see who gets the with and the and in movies. I fucking love that. I watch the credits to every movie I go see just because I want to see what order the names go out in and whether or not I agree, you know, with the order. Visual effects, as if there's visual effects in this show. And there is kind of, I guess. But not anything that actually... That's not true. Later seasons, just not this episode. Not season 1. We weren't doing anything in season 1, guys. We were just guys messing around. No animals were harmed in the making of this film. Copyright 2017. All rights reserved. Okay, well, now there's actually nothing rolling past the screen anymore, so I have to stop this commentary. I'll see you in the next one.